Everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Great to have everyone here today with us. Adrian's here. We're going to be talking about what's going on behind him. For those that are going to see this on video, there's it's an amazing images behind him. All of his branding's on point. We're talking lifestylerai.com. I'm going to talk a lot of stuff about what he does, but as well, a little bit about his podcast journey. Adrian, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
I appreciate you having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Exciting. Okay, for those that are seeing you, you need to explain what's going on behind you. And for those that are hearing us, we have to kind of explain for them too. So tell us about all the branding I see going on behind you there.
So behind me, I have a beautiful 1960s single-wide mobile home that came with most of its siding. And this is because I buy and rent mobile homes with the land. And this is one that I own behind me. And it's an attention getter. Like you said, it gets your attention real quick. It's a little bit of branding. And then I do have my website on the side and a QR code. But I like attention. And I'm wearing a bright yellow shirt. And it's just become my branding. And it's been fun.
Okay, tell us all about Lifestyle RAI. What's going on? Tell us more.
So Lifestyle RAI is my real estate education company. And it's to bring sunshine, joy, and happiness into others' lives while I teach from my experiences, my success, failures. And then I bring in friends that run successful real estate businesses to teach exactly what they do and then go back and enjoy their business that they're in when they normally wouldn't come into the teaching world. And that's what the Lifestyle RAI is really about. I focus on renting mobile homes, buying them and renting them out, like a single unit, which is not that talked about. So that is my main business. And I teach on that and then some other topics, but that's the one that most people just haven't heard of.
So at any given time, how many mobile units do you have?
We take care of about 30 properties.
Wow.
And they're all within the Central Florida area. So I'm in between Tampa and Orlando, a little town called Plant City, Florida. And we are the winter strawberry capital of the world. And that's actually where the podcast that my brother and I host is out of as well.
Nice. So you get a lot of Canadians coming down there, I guess.
We do. We get the snowbirds. The joke is from the boogeyman to the Easter bunny.
I love it. Well, I'm in Canada and we have people leaving here around this time of year. So yeah, that makes sense. Good.
Yeah.
So tell us about your podcast that you have that you guys have been doing and a little bit more about that show as well.
Yeah. So my little brother and I started a podcast. It's called Hello Plant City. And it really started because of one of our mutual friends, Steven. And I was talking to Steven one night saying how I've got my yoga ladies, I call them. So I go to the yoga classes in the YMCA in Plant City. And it's me and 70 and 80-year-old ladies mainly. And I absolutely love it. I fell in love with the class and the humor and the spirit of these ladies. I mean, if I can be in half the health and condition and happiness they're in at their age, I'm going to be success. That's what I'm going to say is success. And I keep going because they're doing something right and I need to copy them.
Yeah.
And I was telling Steven one night, I just want to interview them. I want to know what their story is. They're doing something all in common. And I think yoga is one of them. I'm assuming some eating habits and mindset habits. But whatever that is, I want to copy it. And they're just interesting people that no one really knows who they are. And he was like, your brother's been wanting to interview interesting people in Plant City that people really don't know about. So then my brother and I started talking a little more, and we decided, let's do a podcast then. Let's just not keep these videos for ourselves. Let's put it out there. And that's the premise of the podcast. It's unheard of, interesting people. They're your next door neighbor if you're in Plant City. And we really didn't think it was going to be anything outside of Plant City. And we have had people watching it that are not just in Plant City. We have people there that are 5-time world champion women boxers, airbrush artists that are sought after all over the U.S. and still travel around the U.S. for it.
Wow.
We have had an interview of two daughters, and this was one of my brother's big people he wanted to interview, and he passed away before my brother could get to interview him. He was a World War II vet. I can't remember all the details on him, but it was one of the reasons my brother wanted to get into this because this guy lives in Plant City and had one of the first actually radios shows in the area. And the guy passed away before my brother could interview, so he did his two daughters.
Hmm.
And so we can keep going on. We decided we were going to do 20 people. And then if we wanted to continue, we could have bonuses. But for us, it was an insight. Like it was going to be this big monster podcast that was going to be super hard to keep going and over intimidating. And we're almost halfway there.
Nice. It's amazing. So how long ago did the podcast start then?
So we did season 1 in 2020.
Okay.
And we have not done season 2 yet.
There you go.
But we are behind.
Yeah.
I told my brother I really want to get some done this December. I just want to carve out time and do it. It's two reasons. When you and I started talking, it kind of re-sparked me a little bit. Let's get this going. And one of my favorite yoga ladies, Helen, had a health scare. And I didn't get to interview her yet. And she's okay now. But it was one of those, like, if I don't interview her and I just kept pushing it down the road, it's going to be a regret of my life.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple thing. You know, life just keeps going and we keep thinking, oh, we have all this time. And so this December, we're going to start getting some more interviews done.
It's good. Do you have any connection between the podcast and your business at all, or are they two separate things?
They're two separate things. The podcast is really just a passion project for both of us. My brother's big in the artsy world. He even helps run, it's called Make Plant City. It's for artists to get together. They used to meet once a month, and now I think it's mainly an online thing, but it's an actual organization. And so he's big into that world. And for me, it's just a passion thing. People that I desire to be like, I just like to study them. And
Nice.
These ladies are just happy, healthy people. And when you are active and have a smile on your face in your 70s and 80s, to me, you've done something right.
Yeah. Because I think one thing, Adrian, a lot of people fall into this trap that they think that the moment you start a podcast, you have to make money. Like that's the reason why everybody has a podcast. We're all here to sell something. I have a course, a book, a thing, whatever. I'm here to make money. And that's the reason why I'm podcasting. That doesn't sound like that's your motivation for your show then.
Nope, there's no sponsors. There's no money trying to be made at all. Well, I mean, I guess technically we spend money for it because we do have to, no matter how cheap you try to do a podcast, it still costs money.
Yeah.
And we can go down that topic if you want. My brother and I decided to kind of keep it simple. And then he decided to edit and make it a little more, we'll say, professional sounding. And I said, nope, I don't want to do anything about that. And the long story short, we can get into details if you want. I said, I'll pay, I think it's like $12 a month we have to pay for one of those services to spread it out there to all the pat. I'm like, I'll pay that, but I'm not doing the work.
Yeah.
And that was our agreement.
So when you guys first started the podcast, did you actually sit down and plan out like who's doing what and who's responsible for what? Like there's emails that have to be created. You have to have a host, like you mentioned, you have to pay for. There's who's going to connect with the guests. Like, how did you divide up the work between the two of you?
We brainstormed a long list of people that we would like to interview, and we did that together. And then we started kind of crossing some people off that fit all of our criteria, except for they were known in the area. So we put those, like, we'll say on the back burner. There was too many people that would fall into categories. And when it came to we just reached out to him. He had his people. He reached out to them. I reached out to the people I knew. We set a time. We just brought the microphone to them and set up and hit record. We had talked about ahead of time that it would be a 25, 30 minutes, somewhere in that range podcast. Very raw, one take, done. no editing or anything.
Yeah.
And we did a few of them on Zoom because it was during COVID time, and everyone felt better about that. But then my brother decided he wanted to add more to it. Some of these people that he had interviewed, because he did a few without me because I couldn't make it. And he decided he wanted more to honor like that war vet. So he added a bunch of pictures and leaving some video footage and everything. And then that kind of set a standard. So then he started doing a little more editing as it went through. We also learned that 25 minutes is really quick, especially when you have someone super interesting. So he decided he was going to do some editing. I said, I'm not doing it because it won't get done by me. I know my personality and it just won't get done raw
Yeah. Yeah.
or not. So he's doing some editing with it, which is definitely a better quality show because of that. And then he hits upload. I don't even know how that happens, how it works. Like I said, he told me, hey, we got some ongoing expense of, I think it's $12 a month. I said, I will gladly pay that to not touch any of this editing. I put my credit card down, and that's really what we got. He got a local artist to do the little music, going intro and outro.
Smart.
That was a volunteer thing. They're a smaller local artist, so they did that.
Great.
I don't even know who made the artwork. I'm not sure if one of us hired a VA or if he found someone through. I think he found someone through our artist community, and that's it. We don't have anything else. We just posted on Facebook, and I honestly couldn't even tell you how many people listen to it. I do know people do because people ask me, "Hey, when are you coming out with another season?"
That's good.
But it was a pure, I said, passion project. That we didn't care if 5 people listened to it or 5,000 people listened to it. Obviously, you want more people to listen, but it didn't matter for us to do it. It was just a passion project.
Adrian, this is so refreshing to hear somebody say this, because when I go into rooms or listen to people talk about podcasting, it's all about the 100,000 listens, making money, getting these big fancy sponsors, and it just seems so overwhelming when all you want to do is just create a podcast like yours, connect with people, hear their stories, because it's all about legacy.
Yeah.
Like be able to hear these stories. I know for my show, I've had 2 people I've interviewed in the last few years who have passed away since. And I have this video footage of them in their homes. I have one woman who lived in Hawaii and lost her house in that fire. So I have probably the last video of the inside of her house. It's gone. Right.
Yeah.
And like you do life with these people and you connect with people in a real way. And it's amazing to kind of know that you have that kind of connection and you can share their legacy no matter what happens down the road. You have a little piece of them that you can share with the world. I love what you're doing. It's great.
Thank you. I love when we were talking before the show, you were saying all this. I'm like, this is exactly like our passion for it. And it's a true give and abundance mentality.
Right. Yeah. We need like 10,000 more Adrians in the world. I got to tell you, because between you and your brother, what the 2 of you are doing is so selfless, and I don't know. I think we need more of you guys. Really, really do.
Well, thank you. I think there are a lot of us out there. Media just kind of overwhelms us and we don't realize it all the time. But
okay. So
if there wasn't a lot of great people out there, well, my podcast wouldn't exist. And I don't think yours would either.
Right.
I do believe there are a lot of great people.
Okay. So how much did you know about podcasting before you recorded the first episode?
Me?
Yeah.
I knew how to listen to podcasts. That's it.
That's it.
My brother did a tiny bit more research. I honestly don't know if he had a microphone before that or if he bought it for ours. He bought one of the Blue Yetis, not the very best one, but one of the middle ground ones.
Yep.
And I don't know if he had a friend that knew someone or that had a podcast. and there was somebody that was doing it for free at first. I don't even know the right words. See, this is how little I know from my side of it, of the final, I guess, edit to upload.
Yep.
And we had some trouble getting it on, I guess, Apple's world or Amazon's world. There was a little bit of delay and trouble there. He updated me and I felt a little bit bad. I was like, let me know how I can help, but I really don't want to do anything that is technical. So I was saying I want to help, but I also don't really want to help. And so he figured out a lot of it, but we didn't have that many roadblocks. We just tried it. We had a little roadblock. He figured out what to fix, or he asked some people, and we just did another one and another one. And again, he did some of the editing, and I'll tell you, the stressful part of it, and I felt bad because it was partially my schedule. We were releasing on Thursdays, and we would record a lot of times a Wednesday afternoon. So my brother would go home afterwards and for an hour or two do the editing and then upload it, and it would appear the next day. So yeah, from my side, it wasn't stressful at all.
Yeah. What did it feel like for you to see and hear your podcast on those apps that you listen to other shows on? What did that feel like to actually see it there?
It felt great. What felt even better, though, when people told me how much they loved it and how much they really appreciated the interview of the person they never knew about. Like, that is what really lit me up. And so, yes, it did start for a little bit of a selfish reason that I just wanted to get these people's stories. And there still are a lot of them that I really want their stories. But the fact that everyone else gets to share and hear about their stories and benefit from it, that's just amazing. And it costs so little effort and so little money. There's no reason to keep continuing it.
Yeah. So, Adrian, talk to the listener who's here with us, listening to our episode. They want to do a passion project podcast like you're doing. They're not in it for the money. They really identify with what you and your brother are doing. Do you have any words of wisdom from your perspective about podcasting that might help them? Maybe they just don't know where to start, or they're nervous, whatever, but they haven't done it yet. They haven't recorded or released that first episode. From your expertise, you're a podcaster, so you can speak to this. How do we encourage that person to start their show?
It's not as scary as you think it is. Hit record. You can always edit it. You know, if you really feel like you messed up some, start it all over again. We actually had one episode that we just said, let's just start over. We were a few minutes in and we realized we both kind of messed up a little bit. It's not a big deal. It's not live. I know some people do them live, and those are okay too. But so just start it. And if you're not into the whole tech side of it, so if this was just me doing it and not my brother, I didn't have his help, I would go to a website like Upwork and find a VA and hire them to do this other side of it, the whole uploading and a little bit of editing it needs. I would find someone to do that. It's not that costly, and I would still be able to do the part I really, really love. So one of my late friends, Bill Murillo, he really taught me to take massive, imperfect action. So you take a little action that you know is not right. It's imperfect, but it gets you a little bit further, and then you fail forward, John Maxwell. So you take some action, you fail forward, you get back up, you ask for help, and then you do it again. And you keep doing that over and over and over again. And every time I do that, I get stuff done quicker and better than waiting until everything's perfect. And the analysis paralysis, we need it at times. I want my brain surgeon to go over things over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't really need my podcaster to do that. And I think another piece that is important is to figure out your feel to it. As I mentioned, our feel is kind of the imperfect. It's my brother does a tiny bit of editing. Some of that is just because we'll have 40 or 50 minutes of great content to try to bring it down because he wanted to keep a little bit shorter of one. But there's ones out there, Joe Rogan, I think. I don't listen to it because it is so long. It's what, 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of banter and stuff. It's not my style because it's so long and there's so much filler. But who cares? It's his style and he's doing well with it. If you find your style, your people are going to love it.
Yeah. I like it. And what does it feel like, again, to get that feedback from an audience asking you to bring it back, bring the show back? What does that also do for you as a creator of a podcast to kind of reinforce that you're doing the right thing by having your show?
Yeah, it reinforces that I'm doing the right thing. And it reinforces that these people I look up to and I think are really interesting, multiple people think that because we didn't know. We thought that these people would be interesting, but just because I think something's interesting doesn't mean everyone else does. So it was a little bit of that. And I'm a little bit of a promoter at heart. I like to promote other people and tell people about other people. And the fact that I get to do that, let people know about their neighbor is one of the first women bodybuilders ever who lives in Plant City.
Wow.
Just stories like that, stories of an immigrant that he's the only one of the whole family that doesn't have his citizenship because one box didn't get checked well. So little stories like that are just amazing that no one knows about because they're everyday people and they're not quote unquote special. But then when you talk about their story, it really is special. Everyone has a little bit of a special story in their own way. And to be one of the ones responsible for actually getting those people out there for people to hear their story, it feels great for me, but I know it feels good for them because they get to inspire others. And then people that listen, just like this show, hopefully someone's listening and saying, you know what, I'm going to start that podcast tomorrow. It's just this ripple effect that keeps happening. And then that person that started their podcast because of listening to this episode, think of the people they're going to affect positively. And then it just keeps going and going. That ripple effect doesn't stop. And it started with you, and then it keeps going.
It's great. Yeah. This, Adrian, this is exactly what I was hoping for from our conversation. Again, because there are probably 1,000 podcasts that are saying the complete opposite of what we're talking about right now. And those are the ones I hear so often, and I don't relate to them because they have a different focus, a different reason for podcasting. And that's not my reason. That's not why I'm here. And I love hearing someone else that confirms in my mind and my heart that I'm kind of on the same path. To hear you say it really helps me as a listener. So I'm with you all the way. I love this.
Well, yeah, thank you, man. I think the people that are doing nothing but sales, they're short-lived. I don't think anyone long-term wants to hear that. Eventually, they realize, man, the last 30 episodes, all they've done is pitch me something. And I don't think they're going to get long-term. I think it works well in the short term, and they probably make money. But longevity of it, they either get burned out, their listeners get burned out. I just don't think it works. Because I see that in the speaking world, because I go around the country speaking at real estate conferences, and the transition's actually away from selling every single meeting because the attendees are tired of getting sold every single meeting. And now they're not getting sold every meeting, and it has to be a little bit lighter of sales, and there has to be some actual content there. It's similar here in the podcast world. People want real content and real conversations.
I like this. How are you different as a person? Having a podcast, starting a podcast, it's a new skill, a new ability. You're doing things you've never done before to this degree. How is it helping you with your speaking engagements? Just you as a person, how are you different now that you're a podcaster?
It really helped me upgrade my skill set of asking questions, because I believe that's the biggest thing that you're doing besides the entire behind the scenes. You have to ask good questions as a podcast host. If you don't ask good questions, well, the guest doesn't have anything to talk about, or it's exact same questions they've been asked every single time they've been on. Even though mine doesn't have a lot of, they're not on a lot of repeats. But it really, I had to sit down and think, what do I ask this person? And then to think of that, you have to start researching them some. So there has been some time involved in it. And, honestly, I don't know some of my questions I'm going to ask Helen, for example. I know I want to know a lot about her life and I'm super interested, but I actually don't know the right questions to ask. So whenever I'm more of like, give me a deadline and then I'll get all my stuff done for that deadline. So as soon as I find a date for her that works for my brother, her and I will probably be scrambling like, what questions do I ask her? I'll be asking other friends. And I believe the quality of the questions you ask in life improve your communication skills dramatically. And that's one of the things that's done for me. And honestly, I don't talk about having a podcast very often, but anytime I ever have, people are like, oh, you have a podcast? It's similar to writing a book. And people are like, they kind of put you up on a pedestal a little bit. And I'm like, well, yeah, I do. I didn't realize it was that big of a deal, but it's a little bit of a prestige thing that feels good. My goal was to get people's information out there and stories out there.
And what I love about your guests too is they're not there to sell something as well. So you're getting an opportunity to give somebody a voice where they probably would never tell their story anyway. And it's available everywhere. That's amazing. You never know who's going to hear that episode and hear the story of the person that you have as a guest. And your conversation could help somebody that you will never meet. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly, man. I know that there's some type of statistics out there. I've never read them, but for every comment or every review, there's 10 or 100x people that actually benefited from it. And I should probably look those up to kind of have some idea how our podcast is doing. But I just haven't cared in any way that impact, I guess, because I just wanted to produce it. We will promote it more, my brother and I. We've talked about it. And one benefit that we get, I just thought of, because again, I like to promote people. We've had these people on our show. Well, then if they ever do anything special again, so the 5-time boxer, women's champion boxer, she went and did a fundraiser. Well, our podcast Facebook page gets to promote that again because she's been on before. So there's, some ongoing cool things that you get to do to keep promoting people.
And those connections mean a lot. And I think we need that. And Adrian, I talk to podcasters who stare at their numbers as if they're going to grow by just watching them. And it doesn't work. You just look at the number, it's refresh. Oh, I got one more listen. Refresh. And they're like the opposite of what we're talking about, where that's all they think about is their numbers. And I love hearing that you're just like, no, I really don't even have any idea. It's amazing.
And it's funny. I can relate to that refresh because there was a time when I had first released my book. That's exactly what I was doing. Refresh for the sales to see, did someone else buy? Did someone else buy? And it wasn't meant to be that, me obsessed with the numbers, but you get caught up in some things. I am fortunate that I didn't get caught up in that with the podcast, that it just stayed a passion. And I would say a tiny bit of that is partially because I don't even know how to log in to see any of it. And I'm joking around about that a little bit, but it's to show people that you don't have to have all that lined up. Either your partner that you're doing it with does, or you find a VA of some sort, virtual assistant. You can start spending a lot of money into that world, but you can find someone to help you and create the accounts and give you all the logins, and you go and change it when you're done. But there's help that you don't have to know every little piece of this.
Adrian, this is like the most refreshing conversation I've had for the last 2-3 weeks. And just because of the way you're approaching all of this. It's not that you don't care. I know you care about this. You care very deeply about your podcast, who you're connecting with, sharing their story. I don't want anybody to get this impression that you just don't care. You really care a lot, but you're not caught up in this hamster wheel that so many podcasters are on, where they have to be a success and they have to hit a number and they have to make so much money, and that's where they get their identity from. You're not that person, and it is so refreshing to hear you say these things, Adrian. I love it.
Well, thank you. I've learned some of that the hard way in other businesses, that I got obsessed with everything, and it just added stress. And as soon as I just relaxed and just had faith I'm doing the right thing, success came. So now I know, all right, if I'm doing what I want to be doing and it's part of my life vision, which this podcast is a passion project that involves that, I'm just going to do it. And maybe people listen, maybe they don't. It's not about those numbers, as you said. It's just about doing the right thing, what I feel is the right thing, and it's fulfilling. And maybe not many people listen, but maybe a lot of people are impacted. And if nothing else, kind of as you alluded to with the people that lost their home and a loved one, that it could be the world to one or two people or the guest versus the audience that are listening. So there's both sides that we get to help out here.
I'm really enjoying this conversation, Adrian. I'm going to have you come over to Living the Next Chapter, and we're going to be talking about your book. And that'll be a nice accompaniment to this podcast, so we can know more about your book and your speaking and all of that. But let's talk about that before we go, because I want people to connect with you. Talk about what you do for the speaking side of what you do, where you're looking to speak, and kind of how people can connect with you for that. And then let's mention the book as well, because we're going to talk about it on Living the Next Chapter. So can you give us some background around the book and your speaking stuff that you do?
Yeah, so my book, I wrote it because a few different reasons. One, people never thought I'd write a book. I never thought I'd write a book. And I like to do things that are against the grain. And so my book is How to Buy Mobile Homes. I kept it nice and simple. As you can see, everything's yellow. I keep nice, bright yellow. And when I was writing it, one of my yoga ladies is actually my fourth grade teacher. And I told her,
wow.
You know, Miss West, I'm writing a book. I'm probably your last student you ever thought would write a book. She kind of stood there in silence. I did not ask again. I kind of took that as a yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But, all jokes aside, I was in remedial classes all through school. And while writing the book, I actually found out I'm dyslexic.
Really?
And my book was not on purpose to be this way, but it ended up being an inspirational story from how I started as an evicted tenant all the way to allowing my wife to retire at the age of 29. And throughout that story, I teach about mobile homes. And I teach everything. I don't hold back on it. Some people told me I put too much in the book. They're not going to come take your courses now. I'm like, I wrote the book in the filter of education, then promoting my courses, and then we'll say money, because anyone out there that has written a book understands that there's not money in writing books. My mom keeps saying, have you made all your money back yet? I'm like, it's going to be a long time, because I actually hired a coach to help me write the book. We'll talk about that on the other show. But it's a passion thing for me as well. And now I learned I really like writing. I never thought I would. And so, I speak. Now I'm moving my speaking more to online. I'm not going to be traveling as much, because I've been traveling the last 2 years, over half the year.
Wow.
And I want to be with Erin, my wife, a little bit more often.
Good.
And so now I'm going to travel less. I'm traveling virtually like we're doing right now, a little more.
Yeah.
I love in person more, because you get the energy that you and I are putting off right now. And I get a little bit of yours from this, but I think it's because you just have a lot of positive energy.
Thanks.
But online, you don't get as much of that, especially if it's a room full of Zoom that all have their cameras off.
Yeah.
So it's
right.
It fits my lifestyle better to be able to talk to you from hundreds of miles away, but it's So it's kind of finding both. So I speak a few times a year going forward in person and then more online. And, I'm doing a podcast tour and I joke around that's very serious, but I say in a joking way that I'm here to have fun. You're doing all the work.
Right.
We talked about some of the work, and I gave the viewpoint of how it doesn't have to be a lot of work, but we turn this off and I'm done. You have to do work. You can have a little bit of work, depends on how much you do, but I'm done. I showed up and had fun.
Right.
So I found I really like this side of the microphone a little bit better because I'm purely having fun.
Yeah. It's amazing. Adrian, I love it. We're going to have links to all your stuff in the show notes. We'll have as well over on Living the Next Chapter, and looking forward to that conversation as well. Thank you for being such a breath of fresh air as a podcaster. I don't know if you really realize how unique you and your brother are for what you're doing. There's just a fraction of people who have the attitude and the desire to do what you're doing and the way you're doing it. I just want to encourage you to keep going and keep doing what you're doing, because you're very unique in how you do your show. And again, I'm not joking by saying we need more of you and your brother in podcasting. So keep doing what you're doing. It's really good.
Thank you. And I think I can speak for him that I don't think we realize that we are that unique. Maybe we're blind with goodness from our heart, but I just don't think I didn't realize it for sure that it's unique, but we're just, thank you. And that might push us to get over our 20 episodes, that keep doing a bunch of bonus episodes.
It's good. It's great. I'm looking forward to sharing this podcast with all of the listeners for the How to Podcast family. You're now part of the family for the How to Podcast family. So I'm encouraging all of those listening to go over, and I have links to your podcast, to go like, share, or do all the things we can do behind the scenes to help support you and what you're doing. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more of these stories that you're capturing. So keep going. Don't stop.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
All right, everyone, go check out the show notes. Make sure you support Adrian and his brother and all the great things they're doing. All the information will be there. Adrian, again, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, it's Dave jumping on here at the end. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for listening to the How to Podcast series. Putting this out there for you. You're starting a podcast and you're like, Dave, the technology is giving me a headache. This editing thing is, I don't know. It's banana pants. I can't figure it all out. And you're thinking, if there was somebody who could help me with my podcast, I would pay them to do the editing for me. Guess what? I'm actually doing that. I have clients now, past guests who've been on the show on one of my other podcasts, on this podcast. I'm doing some podcast consulting. I'm doing podcast editing. I'm helping with people launching their podcast, getting it, all the technology stuff, all getting your podcast in all the players, helping you with your YouTube channel, your website. Oh, it just goes on and on. It goes on and on. And I would love to help you. So instead of going to Fiverr or Upwork, I've been on there. I keep trying to get on for jobs and nobody's paying attention to me. And I need attention. I would rather work with you as a listener of the show. So here's what I'm saying. Go to howtopodcast.ca, leave me a voice message, tell me what you need, and let's work out something that works for you and your budget. And if you need full service or you just need something quick like a drive-through type service, I'm there for you. I got you. And if you like what you hear on any of my 7 podcasts, I can do that for you. I can. And I'd love to work with you because you are amazing. And I'm there to help you, whatever you need. howtopodcast.ca. Reach out, let me know what I can do to help you with your podcast. Thank you for listening. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.